Right, hello guys and welcome back, and in the Ashen Iron update, 6 brand new legendary weapon perks and 1 new origin trait got released, but you probably didn't notice that amid the chaos, confusion, and frankly the disappointment that came with the update itself. However, every cloud has a silver lining, and if Ashen Iron is the turbulent storm, then these new perks are definitely the sunlight breaking through. So let's not waste any more time and break down exactly what they do. And if you enjoy this type of content, then a like and subscribe is greatly appreciated. Aggregate Charge is a brand new damage buff that appears on a variety of weapons like Drang, Halietis, or Submersion, the new stasis crossbow. And the first thing you should know is that this perk has the potential to be the next iconic damage perk, joining the likes of Bait and Switch as a serious long-term contender, because it reads, this weapon deals more damage for each elemental debuff applied to the target. So in a way, it's kind of like an anti-elemental honing, where it's centered around how many unique debuffs you can apply, rather than damage types directly. By default, my Romantic Death grenade launcher deals 566 damage. If I then apply Unravel to the target, this jumps to 629, which is an 11% increase. If then I apply Unravel, Jolt, Slow, and Scorch all together, I now deal 753 damage, which is an overall 33% increase. And what we can also see from this test is that the buff is capped at 3 debuffs. So despite me applying 4, it only counts 3. And the best part about this is that it allows multiple debuffs from the same element to count for multiple stacks. And I'm gonna let you in on a little secret: Tractor Cannon applies 2 stacks at once. Yep, not only does the 30% weaken from Tractor count as 1 stack, the intrinsic Void Suppression that Tractor also applies counts as yet another debuff, giving you 2 stacks of the buff from a single application source. And to get to 3 stacks, well, simply just unravel the target and you've got basically infinite uptime on a 33% damage buff. And from a meta perspective, it's highly likely that in somewhere like the Desert Perpetual raid, your group would be running Tractor and some other form of debuff like Jolt, or more likely Scorch. I should note, however, that this damage buff is extremely short-lived, with it only remaining on your weapons for around 3 seconds before requiring you to damage the target again to regain it. It is, however, just enough time to make it so continuous fire never allows the buff to drop off, which is really quite cool in my opinion. Some interesting interactions besides Tractor begin with the Deadfall Tether, which despite applying a 30% Void debuff and Void Suppression grants no stacks whatsoever, and even stranger still, Mobius Quiver immediately grants 3 stacks of the buff because, again, it applies Weaken, Suppression, and Volatile all at once. However, it swiftly falls off after about 1 to 2 seconds, though subsequent volleys will indeed refresh this. Regardless though, a very strange interaction. Two-Tailed Fox applies Suppression, Scorch, and Jolt with a single rocket volley, which as a result will trigger 3 stacks of the buff, and non-elemental debuffs like Disorient will not activate any stacks. The best weapons that benefit the most from this new perk are definitely the Strand Rocket Launcher Halietis and the upcoming Strand Grenade Launcher, the ever-present from the epic version of the Desert Perpetual, likely making it the best in-slot grenade launcher we currently have to date. So definitely keep an eye out for this perk if you're looking to crank some serious DPS. Ancillary Ordinance is quite possibly my new favorite perk in the game because the effect is just so incredibly awesome. It reads, rapid elemental final blows and final blows on targets affected by elemental debuffs periodically prepare a homing micro missile, which is launched from your target after this weapon's next final blow, which sounds a little confusing, and to be honest, it is worded a bit poorly, so here's the simple version. Getting 3 rapid elemental final blows, be it from an energy weapon or ability, grants 1 stack of Ancillary Ordinance. Furthermore, defeating a single enemy affected by an elemental debuff, such as Weaken, instantly grants 1 stack of the buff. And then for the best part, defeating an enemy afterwards releases a tiny little rocket that aggressively tracks the nearest enemy, which just looks so spectacular and charming at the exact same time. You can tell a lot of love went into this. The rocket itself does deal a decent amount of damage, and because it's treated as a micro missile, it's able to activate any micro missile based synergies like the Ion Renewal or Ion Adapter set bonuses, or more relevantly, the Energy Acceleration artifact perk, where sustained damage with micro missiles causes the combatant to emit a kinetic shockwave that damages nearby combatants, which from the gameplay you can clearly see happening with each and every strike. A full list of micro missile synergies can be seen on screen now, courtesy of the wonderful core projects, which you can pause to take a read for yourself if you like. This perk is currently only available on the new Trials of Osiris auto rifle, the Ever-Burning Glitz, or the Portal Scout Rifle Forced Memorializer. And in the case of Ever-Burning Glitz, it can roll alongside Attrition Orbs, and for Forced Memorializer, you can use Explosive Payload plus this perk for a true kinetic powerhouse. And I can only imagine these perks would pair really well with a full TechSec armor build. So keep your eyes peeled, as I might be posting a build relating to to that soon. Furthermore, both of these weapons also come with our next new perk, Bewildering Burst. Bewildering Burst is a new kinetic exclusive perk that reads as follows. Reloading this weapon after defeating a target causes the next hit to launch a kinetic projectile that detonates into a disorienting blast. And thankfully, the description this time round is nowhere near as confusing as the previous, and it does exactly what it says on the tin. Reloading after a kill with this weapon grants Bewildering Burst for 6 or 7 seconds when enhanced, and scoring an additional hit within this time launches a spinning ball that swiftly detonates into a disorienting explosion. And the effect itself does last for several seconds, letting you easily continue the chain, which does make it a pretty good crowd control option, something which kinetics, especially primaries, have never really had before. However, it isn't all sunshine and rainbows, because my first thought with this perk was, does the disorient count as a debuff for Ancillary Ordinance? And unfortunately, it doesn't. Defeating a disoriented enemy with an Ancillary Ordinance weapon does not load any rockets, which isn't the end of the world, but could have been a super cool interaction allowing you to just spam rockets all over. Perhaps consider making a special exception here, please, Bungie? Please. Again, this perk rolls on the Ever-Burning Glitz and Forced Memorializer, and in the case of both, you can pair it with Kinetic Tremors, which does make for a pretty good feeling weapon. And again, I'm sure this is only enhanced further by a full set of TechSec armor. Collective Pugilism is a new perk that centers around melee energy gains, with it reading, collecting elemental pickups or destroying a strand tangle grants this weapon a stacking period of melee energy generation on hit. And it does feature on various weapons like Ever-Burning Glitz, Mida Mini-Tool, or Seraphine Haze. Having a weapon with this perk on and collecting a pickup like an Ionic Trace, for example, grants an increasing duration of the Collective Pugilism buff, with each pickup granting roughly 3 seconds to the timer. And during this time, direct damage grants a decent chunk of melee energy, and yes, it does depend on the weapon type. In the gameplay you're seeing, I'm using Haliatus, a rocket, and it's giving an okay chunk of energy, but I'm assuming it would be different for other weapon archetypes. Not to mention Haliatus already gets a boost because of the Bray Legacy origin trait. All in all, this perk isn't terribly impressive, but in a build where you're making lots of pickups consistently, like an Arc Warlock for example, it might find a place there, but at least for me, I won't be keeping any rolls that have it. Crystalline Corpsebloom is a new stasis perk, which is rather exciting given that we haven't had new stasis perks in quite some time. This perk states that rapid final blows spawn a stasis crystal near the victim's location, which for starters isn't exactly true. In reality, scoring a kill grants Crystalline Corpsebloom for 4 seconds, then kills while the buff is active spawn a seeker that is sent out in a random direction and erupts into a large stasis crystal, providing you have the perk enhanced. So the best way I can describe this perk is like a more forgiving headstone that feels better. This perk can be found on exactly 2 weapons at time of writing, which are the Trials Fusion, Burden of Guilt, and the new Seraphine Haze SMG from Portal Activities. Finally, the last main perk that was added is called Lead from Light, and it states that picking up an Orb of Power causes your next final blow with this weapon to grant bonus special ammo meter progress. And taking a look in game, collecting orbs grants an incrementing stack count of Lead from Light up to the maximum of 6 stacks. These stacks do indeed persist through stow and do not expire unless you die or the weapon is completely swapped out. Because you can't simulate ammo generation in the firing range and this perk is, let's just say, less than optimal, you'll just have to take my word on the fact that it'll grant an additional 7.35% meter progression on enemy takedown, and subsequently each kill removes a stack of the buff. The last perk I wanted to briefly touch on was Contending Cascade, which is actually an origin trait found only on the new Stasis Crossbow Submersion, and it says that this weapon gains bonus handling and reload speed based on your longest chain of rapid final blows from any source. After achieving an impressive record, final blows with this weapon create an elemental damage explosion. So taking a look in game, after scoring exactly 15 rapid final blows within 4 seconds of each, a loud sound effect plays signaling that you have reached the maximum bonus available. And from there on, every kill you get will cause a relatively small explosion. And well, this is certainly a unique origin trait, perhaps not the best there is, but definitely an interesting one to say the least. As I said, it's only available on the crossbow at the moment, so when we start to see it become used on other weapon archetypes, we might see things start to shake up a little. But for now, it's not much more than a cool piece of tech. So there we have it. That's the complete breakdown of all the new legendary weapon perks added in the Ashen Iron update. If you enjoyed the video, then please be sure to like and subscribe, and also follow me on Twitch, as we'd love to have you join the community over there. In any case, that's all I've got for today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now, dear viewer.